So we got this chisel right here, and we're gonna make a handle out of it. That didn't make any sense. We're not gonna make a handle out of this. This is a piece of metal. We are going to make a handle for this. I found myself a piece of 8/4, 2x2 walnut. It's got some sapwood going on, and I got a bunch of these, and I was gonna turn them into different things. When I say a bunch of these, I got like 3 of these. This is the most warped one, so I'm least likely to be able to turn something out of the whole thing. So I'll go ahead and cut this up, and this will be for the handles. So this isn't square at all, that's definitely a rectangle. I don't really feel like getting my bandsaw out. It's over here buried behind the sander and the table saw. Since I don't really feel like getting that out, and it would be really dangerous to cut that like that, I'm just gonna go ahead and take my time turning this. It'll just chatter a lot more. So to mark the centers, you're gonna want something like this. This is an awl. You can buy these in hardware stores, or you can make your own, or you could use a nail or anything pointy and sharpened. You're gonna want to find a straight edge. I'm just gonna use this chisel here. You go from corner to corner. Take your pencil or your pen or scribing knife or anything that'll make a line. You go draw that line from that corner to corner, just like that. You can see it. It is right there. And then on the dot right there, you take your awl, and make sure you don't poke yourself in the hand with this, and then just kind of make a point there. And that's what we're gonna center on the lathe. Do the same for the other side.
Okay, so what I'm doing here is just using those 2 center points that I used the awl on, the 2 little dots, put one on the live center and put one in the middle of the spur center, tightened everything down, and gave it a little test run. Once I know everything's tight and working right, everything spins freely, I go ahead and take the normal gouge. It's basically like a spoon shape type thing. It works best if you kind of hold it on its side and tip it down a bit. And then all I did was I ran back and forth until I got about the right size that I wanted. Got the chisel down there, just seeing the right shape basically. And this is kind of where I started to make the taper at the end. Also, I started to shape the handle, something that would fit nice in the hand, and that's completely up to you. The shape doesn't really matter. The taper at the end is the only thing that really matters. Okay, so this is the part that I put the taper on the end. Basically get smaller at the end and a little bit bigger. I did this all by eye, which was a mistake. I should have made it precise. I should have measured the chisel and then decided what to go from there. I started using the skew chisel, or the skew tool for the lathe, to make a straight line all the way across. That helped, but you can't push very hard with that because it'll end up grabbing and then throwing chips off, or things will break. Now the next thing that you're going to want to do, or the next thing that I did, was take the tool rest off, and that's so that you don't get your fingers kind of chopped off. And then I sanded it down to 400 grit, as well as what you see now is I'm cutting it off. Make sure you don't ever turn the lathe on while using a saw like this. I just wanted to take that piece off without having to put it in a vise. So I left it on the lathe and started cutting down the rest of the line that I had put on with the tool. And now you can see me test fitting the chisel, and it didn't quite fit, so I'm starting to narrow it down a bit with the chisel itself.
Okay guys, so I turned the whole handle, had the taper on the end, went to put it in, and it fit. Everything fit together. And then I put some epoxy in, and I was pounding this in on the end with a mallet, not a mallet, sorry, like a mini sledge, sitting over there somewhere. And anyways, it snapped off, so I guess it wasn't really the strongest wood to be using. So I'll be putting this away, not using it, and I gotta pull this out real quick before the epoxy dries. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick this up again tomorrow. Maybe try it with a different kind of wood. I really like the color of the walnut. Maybe if I just get the taper just a little bit closer to this so it's not, I don't have to pound it in. I'll let you know what I do so that you guys can learn from this just as much as I did.
Okay, so you heard me just talking about how I basically snapped the handle off, and what I did is I returned it. You'll see that later on in the video, the actual finished product. I turned it the same way, I just kind of did a better job at measuring out the taper, and then I set in the handle a bit. I'll explain that a little bit better later on in the video. What I'm doing here is taking off all the rust off of the chisel itself. I started off with 100 grit sandpaper, and then I went to 320. Basically the 100 just takes out all the like big spots that are covered in rust, and you can't get it all because you'd have to take off way too much metal, but I just got most of it off. It's enough that it'll function properly. So I've done the 100 grit and the 300 grit, and I've kind of shown you guys real quick what that looks like. I sped this video up to 8 times just so that you can watch the whole thing in a reasonable amount of time. What I've done now is switch to the 800 grit stone, and then I'll go to the 1200 grit stone in a few minutes. Basically what you do is sharpen it by going on the flat side and then going on the skewed side or the tapered side on the other side. You just keep going back and forth between the two, running it along the face of the stone. Try not to wear your stone down in any particular spot any more than the other spots, really, because you want it to be flat for when you're sharpening chisels.
Okay guys, so I'm doing this. I ended up using the same piece again. I just threw it back on the lathe. I wouldn't suggest actually doing this unless you know what you're doing on the lathe, because it was kind of difficult to get the right taper. You should probably measure this out. I never did measure it, but what I did is I got the taper going here. That's about the right size to fit in here, and I kept taking it off the lathe to see if it fit. And then I put this recess right here so that this doesn't look stupid just on its own. It'll end up going on like that. It won't be perfectly smooth, and I'm okay with that because it's just a chisel, because I don't actually have a chisel set. This is what I've got, is a bunch of chisel heads. I'm going to show you how to put this together. Yeah. Grab your piece of cardboard or something and a toothpick, and then your epoxy. Don't mix too much. You don't really need that much at all. Just enough to kind of grab the two pieces together. So you mix it all up. Just make sure you mix it really well. You only get one shot at mixing this, so you want to make sure it actually works. Then take the epoxy, kind of spin it up like this, just so that it doesn't have a long strip, and then mix it on the inside of the chisel. There you go. That's garbage now. And then what I did is I took the chisel like this, kind of spun it around, got the epoxy going, and then picked the way I wanted the grain to look once it was done. So I wanted this little stripe right here. You can't see it on the camera very well, but I wanted that to be up with the face so that it'd take a nice picture. The next thing I did was I took a piece of really hard wood, so I took some red oak, and you want this on face grain, not the end grain like this. You want face grain like this side, and instead of going with the grain that'll end up splitting the wood, go against the grain, and that should be fine for, you want to pound this handle in. So I'm just using this hammer right here. If I had a mallet, I'd use that. Just like that. I'm gonna hit it just a few more times just to make sure it's in there right. That's in there good. Now I'm just gonna put some epoxy in this gap just because I don't want it to look like a gap. And there should still be some left, and it's not completely hardened, so should be enough for me to do this. Alright, there we go. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my favorite finish, which is this, it's called Terra Nova, I guess is the brand name. It's a salad bowl finish. You know, my grandfather's philosophy was if he didn't have to use any hardware at all, he wouldn't, so he'd never use nails. That was an absolute no. Screws if he had to, and always glue. He just hated using hardware. So my kind of philosophy is, why would you stain wood or why would you paint wood? I hate doing that. Like, if I want something to look a certain color, I'll find the wood that is that color. And for the most part, you could find a wood that's any color. Like, this is Osage orange. It is literally yellow. So anything that I want to look gold or yellow, I'll use that. And then I just bring out the color of the wood with this salad bowl finish. So it's basically a clear coat, and it's food safe, and it doesn't change the wood really. You could still work with it. Sometimes I even burn over it, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. You can even apply this with your hands, basically, is what it says to do. Well, you know, it's salad bowl finish. It's something that you can eat out of. I'm gonna sand the epoxy off of here real quick. Now in hindsight, I could have measured this out better and then just had this so that it was basically flush when I took it off the lathe. But I'm more of a calibrated eyeball kind of guy, so I don't really measure things ever. I just learned the hard way that I should be measuring. But I never really make things more than once, so... Next time I do this though, I will definitely measure it. And I suggest that you do that too. I hope you watched this whole video before you decided to conquer this on your own. I hope you liked the video. Please comment down below if you've had any experience with this or anything you think I should be doing differently, or comment your own questions about any of this. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.